It's the World Cup of World Cups, Episode 4, Brazil, 1950.
Saturday, 24th of June 1950. French President Georges Bidault and his entire cabinet resigns. Glenn Ford and Claude Rains star in mountaineering drama The White Tower. Meanwhile, in Yeoncheon, it's all kicking off as the Korean War begins. But meanwhile, in Rio de Janeiro, it's all kicking off with football. What do you think some of the drawbacks of releasing 5,000 pigeons into the air before a football game might be?
I mean, why are you wearing gloves in Brazil in the summer?
It's a close game in that both teams were quite near each other when it happened.
I'd love to see the Zapruder film of this.
Sounds like a shit Bond villain.
Yeah, I want Riyad Mahrez to go for 400 weight of sheep.
Hola e benvindo a Copa do Mundo de Copas do Mundo, episodio 4, Brasil 1950. Meu nome é Jaime Cotziniera e estou acompanhado como sempre por Paulo Selvagem. Hola Paulo, como va voce?
Bien, probably.
It's Portuguese, it's a bit like Spanish.
It's enough that I can sort of get by and then get myself into trouble with.
We're in Brazil for the 1950 World Cup in this episode.
Playing to a samba beat, you've always got to get that, whenever Brazil are mentioned, that cliche out early.
Surely it'll be the most entertaining of all the World Cups.
You'd hope.
Before we get into that, though, the answer to the teaser from the last episode, when I asked when Brazil played Czechoslovakia in 1938, it was the first time that two Golden Boot winners scored in the same game. When was the last time that happened? And it last happened in a very famous game. It happened in a semi-final in 2014 when Germany beat Brazil 7-1. And Miroslav Klose and Thomas Muller both scored. They were both Golden Boot winners in 2006 and 2010.
I did, in my brain, assumed that it would be on opposing sides, of course. Good question.
Thanks. Anyway, it's 1950. The war is over.
Yay! What one of them, the main one.
There are other wars going on, as we've established. The Korean War is about to start. But World War II is done. And FIFA want to start up with the old World Cups again.
Yes, they did look at doing it in 1949. Everyone went, that is too soon. Europe is in ruins, so Brazil was given it.
Yes. In fact, Brazil were going to host it in 1942, which obviously got postponed. Then, as you say, it was going to be in 1949, which would be really odd to have it in an odd-numbered year. Doesn't feel right. It was Brazil who asked them to delay it to 1950, and no one else wanted to host it. But Brazil really, really did, because Brazil hadn't been bombed to bits and they were absolutely football crackers.
Very popular sport in Brazil is football. That was so stupid. I was going to be doing a little tongue-in-cheek thing, and then that just turned out to me being a dickhead.
Such insight. Brazil qualify as hosts, Italy qualify as champions, although Italy are reeling from an air disaster that wiped out the entire Torino team in 1949.
The Torino team were almost the entire Italy team. Do you know, James, what happened to rebuild the Torino team from all of the other members in the Italian league?
Do tell me.
Every team just gave them one player each.
As a loan?
No, to keep. Which must be odd if that wasn't previously discussed with you. I was just like, so pack your family up, you're moving to Turin.
Way to find out you're the least popular member of the team. But Italy were umming and ahhing about whether to take part. Eventually they agreed to appear, but the condition was that they were going to travel down by boat.
Fair enough.
There is, of course, another half-assed qualifying tournament full of teams dropping out. So there were no qualifiers needed in South America or Asia because of dropouts. In Europe, recurring theme, the bad luck of the Irish. Ireland lose to Sweden when a whistle in the crowd confuses the Irish defenders and Sweden score.
Oh, if you were the guy who whistled, you'd be pilloried, you'd presume.
I reckon it was one of them, was it tin whistles that the Irish have? They love all that. But we got firsts, Paul.
Oh, which means we get to press the bell.
So it's 1950. In 1946, England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland rejoin FIFA.
Hooray!
High on not having been killed in the war, the home nations are back in FIFA. And FIFA allow the home nation championships to be used as a de facto qualifying group for the 1950 World Cup. And they say the top 2 nations in the group can go to the finals.
Lovely. That's very kind of them.
Yes, so England win the home championship that year. They're going through, they win the group. And in second place are Scotland.
Now, I don't remember them from seeing them at the World Cup in the highlight reel.
Yes, record scratch sound effect. A bloke called George Graham, not that one, a different one, of the Scottish FA, withdraws Scotland from the World Cup.
Wow.
Because they didn't win the home championship.
Was
the
that
Scottish
penny pinching tightness of the Scots, or was that angry chippiness of the Scots?
Little column A, little column B. Scottish captain George Young pleads with the SFA, but to no avail. They're not going to the World Cup. So once again, Scotland turned down an automatic World Cup qualifying place because presumably they'll get loads of them in the future and it'll be really easy.
Chances galore.
That's one of the 16 qualifiers that are out. Then Turkey pull out, citing costs. So FIFA asked Portugal and the Republic of Ireland if they want to take the available spaces. And of course, they both say no.
Why would you go to a qualifier if you're not intending to go to the thing that you qualified from?
Well, it turns out it's quite expensive to go to Brazil.
I can imagine, but it's what it's for.
But also, you've got to bear in mind that really, outside of Brazil, Uruguay and Argentina, the World Cup is not a big deal in 1950.
Well, I also imagine that because there were not such things in those days as replica shirt deals, TV rights deals, tickets.
Any of the commercial enterprises.
Yeah, you can't take, a travelling army of fans and charge them for the privilege. Actually, I can imagine there was no real way to make money from it.
So anyway, FIFA then ask France, and they say, okay. So then they do the draw for the World Cup, and then France look at the travel schedule and say, yeah, we're not coming now. So we're still 2 teams down. And then the only Asian representative, India, also withdraw.
I have heard rumours, this was a sort of a famous one, that they stopped playing because they wouldn't allow them to play in bare feet. But I've got a funny feeling that might not be true.
India had played in bare feet at the London Olympics in 1948, but FIFA had brought in a rule saying you can't play barefoot. Now, India say that's not why they didn't go. They didn't go because of money. But FIFA say, no, it's because of the barefoot thing.
Oh, right, okay, fun.
So it's disputed. It is a bit of an urban myth, but FIFA were claiming it as recently as 2007 that India withdrew because of not being able to play in barefoot. So this leaves us with 13 participants, just like in 1930. And groups are back. Why do they bring groups back, Paul?
Because you can't put 13 into 16 if you're going to do a ladder.
Nope.
Because you can get more games out of it for the people already there.
It was to maximise ticket revenue and guarantee 3 games per team, which would hopefully incentivise teams to travel, even though it had the completely reverse effect on France.
Well, yeah, I can imagine that if Italy had travelled whatever is 4 weeks on a boat to lose, turn around, go back, that is a waste of 2 months.
Which is basically what happened to Brazil and Argentina in 1934. But the other way around. So we're on to World Cup format number 3, which I'm calling Let's Not Redraw, just because people have pulled out. The 13 teams are split into 2 groups of 4, 1 group of 3, and 1 group of 2.
No.
Yes.
No, that's very bad.
That's how they do it.
Oh, God, that's awful.
Because all the pullouts, it turns out, were in the same groups.
Yeah.
So there's now a group of 2 in the World Cup.
And then did they play each other twice, you'd hope?
No, just once.
No, of course they didn't.
And then the 4 group winners will go into a final round robin group where everyone plays each other. So there's no actual World Cup final in 1950. The final 2 games are played simultaneously. And the winner of that group is the world champion. Now, in terms of finding out which is the best team, isn't that the best format?
What, a league?
Get the 4 best teams and make them play each other and see who's best after 3 games.
Sure, that is one way of doing it. I do like straight knockout football. I think that is more interesting over leagues. It tends to be the richer, more consistent over the course of a league season, whereas you can get upset in a cup competition more easily.
Well, we'll see if there are upsets, Paul.
Yeah.
We'll see, won't we?
We don't know.
We say hello to England.
Hello!
All the other first-time qualifiers have pulled out. Notable absentees, Argentina, are still huffing and not entering the World Cup. Japan and Germany are not allowed to play in the World Cup.
Because they were very naughty.
Austria are not there. They withdrew, claiming that their team was too young.
You can't win anything with kids.
Eastern Europe aren't there, apart from Yugoslavia. They're the only representatives of Eastern Europe in this World Cup, which means that the last two losing finalists aren't there. No Czechoslovakia, no Hungary. We're also missing the entire continent of Africa again.
How did they miss those down there?
It's quite big, you know. There's also
a Cater projection that makes it look not that massive, but it is massive.
There's also no France, Belgium, and Romania, and that's significant because it means that Brazil are now the only country to be ever present, a record that continues to this day. Seeds for the draw are Brazil as the hosts, Italy as the champions, Uruguay as the only other team who've won a World Cup, and who will be the fourth seed, do you think?
I'm going to say England make themselves the seed because they've won the home championship 40 times.
Yeah, England are the fourth seeds.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I was joking about British exceptionalism, but there we are.
Well, FIFA pick it. Oh, by the way, the trophy is now called the Jules Rimet Trophy. Probably helped by the fact that during World War II, Jules Rimet hid the trophy under his bed.
That's the second place I'd look.
Is it in that box? No. Is it under the bed? Yes. Into the groups then. Group 1, we've got an opening game, and it's between Brazil and Mexico, and it is taking place at the brand new Maracanã Stadium. It is so brand new that the plaster on it is still wet, and it is surrounded by a massive building site because it probably wasn't finished. In fact, they can only let in 80,000 people into a stadium that it purports to hold over 200,000. They have an opening ceremony with a 21-gun salute and 5,000 pigeons being released, but they don't specify in what order they do those two things. Whether there are then 21 dead pigeons on the pitch because they've done them in the wrong order. Now, Paul, what do you think some of the drawbacks of releasing 5,000 pigeons into the air before a football game might be?
I would say there's a lot of feathers, a lot of pigeon shit.
That's right. The pitch is absolutely covered in pigeon poo.
I'd say any sort of bird of prey in that area probably really loved it. So, yeah, was there any like peregrine falcons?
There are no reports of that, but I'd like to hope that happened. Maybe it's halftime entertainment. Pigeons are essentially rats with wings, so they've just let 5,000 rats loose.
They painted them in all of the team colours, so it's a festive.
So, Brazil, Mexico. Brazil score after 31 minutes. Ademir scores the first goal of this World Cup and the first competitive goal at the Maracanã. And as soon as he scores, tens of reporters run onto the pitch to start interviewing players.
Really?
Yes. There's been a goal. Quick, ask them what it's like.
Also, because this was 1950, all of those reporters would have been wearing full suits and had a little hat that's got a little ticket saying press in it.
And with a full typewriter as well.
Yeah.
George Reader, he's refereeing this game. He does his best to clear the pitch. He's from Nuneaton. That's
fun. That's part of our British involvement.
Brazil win the game 4-0. They also hit the post or bar 5 times.
Oh.
Mexico are continuing to be no bloody good at the World Cup. Their squad features Antonio Carvajal. You speak a little bit of Spanish, don't you, Paul?
Yes.
El Cinco Copas.
The 5 cups.
But he won't get that nickname until 1966.
Oh.
Because he's only 21 here in 1950, but he will go on to play in 5 World Cups. He's still with us. He's 93. There are either 4 Mexican players from the 1950 World Cup still alive, or Mexico's not very good at updating the internet. As far as I can tell, these 4 Mexican players are still alive. Antonio Carvajal, who's 93, Carlos Guevara, who's 92, Hector Ortiz, who's 93, and Manuel Gutierrez, who's 102. If that's true and he's still alive, he is the oldest surviving World Cup player at time of recording.
Lovely. Well done, him.
Or they died ages ago, and I just can't find any record of them dying because they've got quite common Mexican names. So the Maracanã is now, or it will be when it's finished, the biggest stadium in the world. Which stadium did it overtake?
Is it Wembley Stadium?
It is not Wembley Stadium.
Is it Hampden Park?
It is Hampden Park, you're right.
Yes, go on.
Hampden is now only number 2. Maybe that's why Scotland didn't want to go. Then Brazil plays Switzerland, but they can only draw. It was a 2-2 draw. It was the only game Brazil play in this tournament, not at the Maracanã.
Cursed.
Switzerland equalised with a couple of minutes to go. The Switzerland squad features Willy Steffen, who played 15 games for Chelsea in the late 40s, and the hilariously named Oliver Eggyman, and their reserve goalkeeper, Adolf Hug.
Ah,
We can all think of an Adolf who could have done with a hug, and maybe if he'd had a few more hugs as he's grown up. Anyway, all of this means, and other results in the group means that in the final game, all Yugoslavia need is a draw against Brazil, and they will knock out Brazil,
ooh, tense.
which they did in 1930, and their coach, Milorad Arsenijevic, played in that game. Before the game, the captain of Yugoslavia, Rajok Mitic, cuts his head on an exposed girder in the Maracanã
What?
because it's not finished. So Yugoslavia say, we need to delay the start because our captain has cut his head and he's getting bandaged up. And Brazil/FIFA say, no.
That's a bit rude.
So Yugoslavia start with 10 men, and Mitic misses the first 20 minutes of the game. When he comes on, by that point, Brazil are already 1-0 up, Adamir having scored again
What time did Adamir score?
after 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a bit cheating, like a bit obviously cheating.
You know how Italy rigged the 1934 World Cup?
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of circumstantial
When you say
evidence
this
that
was an exposed girder. Was it one that was exposed in a sort of like slapstick way by being just dropped?
like a Roadrunner cartoon.
Yeah, it comes
yeah.
down on swings. Doosh.
There's quite a lot of circumstantial evidence that Brazil are trying to rig this World Cup as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mitic comes on 20 minutes in. No one has told him that Brazil have scored. So when it gets to half time, he still thinks it's 0-0. Then he's like, what? We're losing? Oh, man. Also in the first half, Makusic, the Yugoslavian goalkeeper, is wearing the same kit as Brazil.
Oh, interesting, because they were all in all white at this point, Brazil. They didn't
Yes.
change into yellow and blue till the 54 World Cup, I think.
That's correct, and we'll get into why a little bit later on. It takes half an hour for the ref, Merv Griffiths of Wales, to ask him to change. For the first 20 minutes, they're 10 men down. For the first half an hour, their goalkeeper is basically in disguise as a Brazilian forward. Serdan Makusic, that goalkeeper, after the World Cup, he goes on to get a forestry degree.
I'd love to go to just any World Cup goalkeepers differing forests. The Fabian Barthez School of Horticulture.
If a goalkeeper falls in a forest and there's no strikers around, does the referee still give a free kick? Halfway through the second half, Brazil score again through Zizinho. So they win 2-0, and Brazil are through to the final group.
Zizinho is one of those just brilliant Brazilian football names.
There are some great Brazilian football names in this tournament. For example, there is Bigode,
Ooh.
which is Portuguese for moustache. Because he's got a moustache, that's his nickname.
Yeah.
But the thing is, loads of the Brazilian players had moustaches. In fact, their front three all had pencil moustaches.
This would be interesting because often it's the Portuguese naming thing where you've got a first name and a middle name and then a first name and a middle name from your mum and then both of your parents' surnames. So you can have 5 or 6 names. And so they just give you a nickname and that is your name. Like Hulk wasn't christened Hulk. He just got on the weights and everyone went, all right, Hulk.
Yugoslavia's squad includes Bozo Braqueta.
Not a nickname.
No, just named after a clown. And Vladimir Firm, which is, of course, a nickname for the Russian government at the moment.
Notably not Vladimir Firm, but fair.
No, absolutely not. This game has the biggest crowd so far at a World Cup, 142,429. The capacity of the Maracanã is getting bigger as they finish bits of it, but not the exposed girders in the Yugoslavian dressing room. On to Group 2. England are in this group,
Hooray, the lovely lads.
along with Spain, who are all right, Chile, who aren't really much, and USA, who are 500 to 1 outsiders.
Yes, and they are made up of literally college boys. There is no professional scene in America at this point.
England's first game in the World Cup is against Chile, and it is a hot day.
That suits the Chileans then.
Yeah, it's in the Maracanã as well, this game. And it's so hot that players have to take oxygen at half-time. But England go on to win 2-0. The first ever World Cup goal by an England player is by Stan Mortensen.
Who would later go on to score 3 in an FA Cup final. When they named that final, they obviously named it the Matthews Final.
When Stan Mortensen died in 1991, someone said at the time, I bet they'll call it the Matthews Funeral.
Oh, that's delightfully niche.
England's second goal is scored by Wilf Mannion. Wilf, of course, standing for Winger I'd Like to Foul. Because he was a winger. So there you go. England have won 2-0 against Chile. So Maybe they'll win every game forever from now on.
I think so. I'm getting pretty excited. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Let's talk a bit about the Chilean squad, because, again, I think there are 4 players still alive, as far as I can tell.
Trapped in mines.
Andres Preto is 93, Manuel Munoz is 94, Arturo Farias is 94, and Fernando Roldan is 97, unless, of course, they're all dead.
Yeah.
Their goalkeeper is Sergio Livingston, who is nicknamed El Sapo.
Ooh.
Come on, Spanish.
No, don't know.
The Toad.
Oh.
Because apparently if you lick him, you get high. And also the Chilean squad features George Robledo. Do you know who he is?
No, I don't.
Okay, let me tell you about George Robledo. He played for Newcastle United. He's the only player at the World Cup not to play in their home nation. He won 2 FA Cups with Newcastle, including scoring the winning goal against Arsenal in 1952.
I would think that there would be more made of him being a foreign player, being that influential at that time.
And he's not just influential in the world of football, he's influential in the world of pop music as well. So he scores the winning goal in the 1952 FA Cup final. And a young lad in Liverpool by the name of John Lennon, who's about 11 at the time, draws a picture of George Robledo scoring in the FA Cup final. And that picture is in the artwork of the 1974 John Lennon album Walls and Bridges, that features the songs Number 9 Dream and Whatever Gets You Through the Night.
Whatever gets you through the night, it's all right.
There's the first mention of a Beatle.
There's only 2 mentions of football in Beatles songs.
I know there's only one footballer on the front of Sgt. Pepper. He was a Liverpool player called Albert Stubbins. Only 2 football mentions. Is it in something like For the Benefit of Mr. Kite or something like that?
No, it's a song called Dig It. He screams out celebrities' names, and one of them is Matt Busby.
Matt Busby, dig it, dig it.
And then the other mention of football is he's a monkey. He got no shoe shine. He got grooving up.
He toe jam football. Yes, and come together.
He wear no shoe shine, he got toe jam football, he got.
Apparently, Paul McCartney claimed that he liked Liverpool and Everton both equally.
He's such a diplomat, isn't he?
Because he's so lovely. He's such a lovely man.
Enough Beatles chat for now.
Yeah.
On with the 1950 World Cup. So England beat Chile. In the other game, the United States team take an early lead against Spain, and they hold on to the 80th minute before 3 quick Spanish goals sees them beaten. Bit of controversy in this game because the American defender Charlie Colombo wears gloves.
I mean, why are you wearing gloves in Brazil in the summer?
I know, something's not right there.
Michael Jackson style affectation.
I think it's exactly that. Spain then beat Chile. So it looks like it's going to be a straight shootout between Spain and England in their final game then. All England have to do is see off the rank outsiders of the United States in Belo Horizonte.
Lonely boys.
Hello, I'm Paul Savage. As well as being the co-host of the World Cup of World Cups, I am a stand-up comedian. I'm doing a show called Well Groomed at the Canonsgate during the month of August, from the 6th to the 28th, not the 17th, at 4:30 every day. A fun, silly show about trauma. And I am also a cartoonist. I have a book called But Doctor. I am a collection of comic strips by Paul Savage, and it is available through my website, savagecomic.com, along with mugs, stickers, postcards, and other fun stuff. Please check those out.
Thursday, 29th of June, 1950.
Day that will live in infamy.
The United States have lost their last 7 games by a combined score of 45-2.
Ooh.
England decide to leave Stanley Matthews out,
Yeah, don't need him.
and they play in blue, the idiots.
Don't they know it's unlucky? I bet this game was on ITV as well.
Yes.
A little reference for those who don't know is that England, when they're on the BBC, win about 86% of their matches. And when they're on ITV, they win about 12.
The story of this game is quite well known. Cut to the chase. The United States win 1-0. The only goal is scored by Joe Gaetjens, which either flukily deflects off his head or is a brilliant diving header, depending on who you believe. There is footage of this game on YouTube, but the cameras don't catch the goal.
So we'll never know. We only had one camera and it was very expensive to film, so we just had to assume they were going to do stuff.
England pretty much have all the possession and chances, but just can't score.
Luckily, we'll obviously fix that for future games.
Frank Borgi in goal for the Americans plays an absolute blinder. His day job is he drives a hearse. Charlie Colombo rugby tackles Stan Mortensen to the ground. Don't know if that's why he's wearing the gloves, but it's adjudged to be outside the box, and because it's 1950, he doesn't get sent off. He just gets a stop that. Now, there's a bit of an urban legend that when reports of the game are sent back to Blighty, they think it's a misprint and that it should say 10-0 or 10-1 to England. That's probably not true, because there's only one American reporter at the game. Do you know the name of the only American reporter?
Chuck Presteinberger.
It's even stupider.
Hank Gunn.
The problem is you're guessing actual names.
Oh, right, okay. Prestbury Tingletown.
No, his name was Dent McSkimming. He worked for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Most of the American team were from St. Louis. To confess, Dent McSkimming's real first name isn't Dent. It is, of course, Florence. Dent is a man, by the way. Dent McSkimming is such a legendary figure in America that he has been inducted into the National Soccer Hall of Fame.
Wow, for turning up to work.
In fact, they inducted him in 1951, which seems very soon after.
Wow, that is impressive.
People say, yeah, but the American team was, probably full of foreigners. In fact, 8 of the starting 11 were born in the United States. The exceptions were McIlvenney, who was from Scotland. He'd later go on to play for Manchester United. There's a guy called Macca from Belgium, and Gaetjens, who was from Haiti. But as you say, Paul, there were no professionals in America. Most of them had day jobs. In fact, their coach, who was also Scottish, William Jeffrey, he was born in Greenock. He was a railroad mechanic. We mentioned Frank Borgi, the goalkeeper, being a hearse driver. He was also a medic at the Battle of the Bulge, won the Bronze Star and Purple Heart.
Bronze Star is bravery and the Purple Heart is you get wounded. So impressive stuff.
Harry Keogh, their defender, he was a postman whose dad won a car on the $64,000 question. To this day, England have never beaten the US in a World Cup match. They play again in 2022.
We've got some revenge. That's what we need.
Well, they've only played twice, Paul. Do you remember the other time they played?
Yes, it was the one where the New York Post put up the famous headline, USA win 1-1, and then about 3 weeks later, when they got knocked out, put up another headline saying, we never liked this stupid sport anyway.
It's the famous game that Rob Green threw the ball into his own net.
Testing Green again. Oh, what an error. What an awful moment for Rob Green and for England.
There is a film of this game that was made in 2005 called The Game of Their Lives.
Yes.
Starring Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler, who is Scottish. Does he play one of the Scottish-born characters?
Nope. He plays Frank Borgi, the goalkeeper. John Harkes, who played for America in 1994 and for Sheffield Wednesday as well. I think he scored in a cup final. He plays Ed McIlvenney. Stan Mortensen is played by Gavin Rossdale from Bush.
Can anyone else smell burning toast? I think I've just had a stroke. That is the weirdest sentence anyone has ever said.
Weirdest of all, for reasons we'll get into, Dent McSkimming is played as an old man by Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Right. But to all intents and purposes, the film is not good. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 26% and an IMDb rating of 4.6. It grossed less than $400,000.
That is low.
It is riddled with historical inaccuracies and tonal choices that make no sense.
Well, the fact that Dent McSkimming is played by, of the 300 million Americans, they couldn't find one of them who wasn't an English actor.
Well, you have to bear in mind that Patrick Stewart is playing him as an old man, which is really weird because, like, the start of the film, they're watching an MLS game in 2004 and Dent McSkimming is there. And he kind of goes, well, of course, this isn't the first game I've been to. I could tell you all about the 1950 World Cup and everything, which is, an interesting framing device. with one slight drawback, which is that Dent McSkimming died 28 years before that happened. So I think Patrick Stewart's playing a ghost, I think.
If I build this, I will come.
Other historical inaccuracies in the film, they say that Joe Gaetjens practices voodoo because he's from Haiti.
Ooh.
He didn't. He was a Catholic.
Ooh. If you'd said that in 1950, that would have been a bit... Saying it about a player 55 years later is way worse.
Yes. They say that Ed McIlvaney's the captain. He's not. They say it's the America's first game at the World Cup. It wasn't.
No, that makes the third place.
In the trailer, there's a line where Patrick Stewart said they were the greatest team I'd ever seen. No, they weren't. They weren't awful. They weren't Bolivia bad, but they were not good, and they got lucky. You know, which happens, and that's part of football, and that's the reason that we like it.
You like it, yeah.
Other historical inaccuracies, Stan Mortensen, being played by Gavin Rossdale from Bush, of course, is congratulated on scoring a hat-trick in the cup final, which he wouldn't do for another 3 years. They say that Stanley Matthews is on holiday in Rio, rather than in the stand watching. And they also, for some reason, Gavin Rossdale plays Stan Mortensen as if he's like a posh Southern English person, when he was from South Shields.
Where's Gavin Rossdale from? Is it just he couldn't do Geordie?
Gavin Rossdale is from Marylebone in London. He's from a very posh...
Oh, yeah, so he just played it out. He's like, I'm not doing a voice.
So that game happens, and that effectively puts England out of the tournament. For England to go through to the next round, they'd have to beat Spain and then have a playoff with Spain again and beat them twice. They can't even do it once. They lose 1-0, although it's widely considered that Jackie Milburn has a goal that was wrongfully disallowed. First in recurring themes of England feeling sorry for themselves about some kind of dubious decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Spain won 1-0. The goal scorer Telmo Zarra gives his name to the trophy that the highest scoring Spaniard in La Liga gets every year. The US lose to Chile 5-2 in the other one, but it's not enough. Spain are through to the final group. Stanley Matthews would write in his autobiography, if there was ever a time when English football should sit down and take a long, hard look at itself, it was in the aftermath of the 1950 World Cup. We stood still, our insular attitude reinforced by the notion that we had invented the game. That could be said about pretty much every World Cup apart from one ever since.
This was a point where, like cricket teams, the team was still selected by selectors.
Yeah. They did have a coach. It was Wing Commander Walter Winterbottom.
That sounds like someone in a farce, you know, one of those like Wing Commander Walter Winterbottom.
He jointly holds the record for managing at the most consecutive World Cups with one nation. He does it 4 times. He's an England coach until 1962. The squad also includes Alf Ramsey. We will speak more of him later. The goalkeeper Bert Williams, nicknamed the Cat.
Nice.
Because
he's crawling on the floor playing with yarn.
That's right, because he bathes by licking himself. Laurie Hughes, the defender, who is the opposite of Hugh Laurie, if you think about it. Stanley Matthews is 35 in 1950. He's the oldest player at this World Cup, but he is not finished yet, not by a long chalk. More of him next time. They just didn't know what to do with Stanley Matthews. They couldn't pick him. An unused midfielder, Willie Watson, went on to have a test average of 25.85 in 23 matches because he also played cricket.
I love footballer and cricketer because apparently Phil Neville was a great cricketer.
Well, he's got to be good at something, hasn't he? Into Group 3, which features Italy, Sweden, Paraguay, and not India because they haven't shown up. Sweden are also missing their 3 best players because they are professionals and the Swedish FA won't let them be in the squad.
Oh, the Swedish were entirely amateur, were they?
Well, sort of. It's such a mess. Until they all just get over themselves and go, fine, just everyone play. Yeah. The Swedish team are coached by George Rayner, who is from Barnsley.
British involvement, we're doing a thing.
More about him later. There's some good nicknames in the Swedish squad. Hasse Jepsen is nicknamed Guidfot, which means Golden Foot. Sounds like a shit Bond villain. Carl Svensson, the goalkeeper, is nicknamed Rio Carl.
Because he's now been to Rio.
Yeah, or he likes the drink Rio.
The one that you can only get from kebab shops.
Yeah. Yeah. 90s. He's called Rio Carl because he likes to ride around on a yacht in a white suit.
Dances upon the sand.
Egon Johnson, a midfielder, whose nickname is Den Hemlige, which means the secret.
Ooh.
Don't know why.
Well, no, because
Maybe that's-
it would be called The Fact.
That's true. Sune Anderson is nicknamed Mona Lisa. Why do you think that is?
Because he was stolen from a French art gallery.
No, it's because he has
He used to have eyebrows, but doesn't have eyebrows now.
No, it's because he has a blunt facial expression.
Enigmatic.
And Lennart Skoglund, their left winger and one of their best players. And we're going to talk more about him in a couple of episodes' time. But he was nicknamed Naka
Naka.
because his brother once played for Naka, the football team.
Wow. There are some really tenuous ones in football. Do you know the reason why West Ham sing I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles?
Do tell.
There was a soap advert, but like a poster board that had a young lad, and then there was a team of that sort of was a filter team for West Ham that had a kid in it who looked like the kid on that. And then there was a song in the music hall at the time called I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles. So the reason that West Ham sing I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles is that a kid who never played for West Ham looked a bit like an advert that didn't have words, that didn't have a song to it, and they therefore sing the song about that guy. Football's great, isn't it?
It's as good as reason as any. Lennart Skoglund was once transferred from Hammarby to AIK for the fee of 1,000 krona, a rug, a coat and a suit.
Oh, yes, please. I love those sort of things. I forget who it is, but somebody went for, I think might have been Roy Keane, went for tracksuits. I think it might have been Billy Wright when he signed for Wolves. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think he went for however much money and we'll get you a job in a factory and 2 bars of chocolate.
Yeah, instead of just money. Be more creative, more bartering in the transfer market, please.
Yeah, I want Riyad Mahrez to go for 400 weight of sheep.
So Sweden beat Italy 3-2, which is a first defeat for any World Cup holder.
Oh, yes, because of course Uruguay has pounced out of defending it.
So that defeat ends Italy's 7-game winning run. And after the match, to retaliate, Italian clubs sign up most of the Swedish team.
Oh, that's nice. So they're no longer amateur and can't play?
Well, Sweden changed the rules.
Yeah, I imagine they did.
Sweden then draw with Paraguay, which knocks Italy out. Then Paraguay need a win to force a playoff, but Italy win 2-0. It's a very depleted Italy squad. They're in a very bad place. However, their goalkeeper, Beppe Moro, is described by an Italian commentator as working without orgasm.
Pardon?
That quote is in a book, and I can't find a reference to it anywhere else. I don't know what it means or what. And I don't know. That's just what I know. Their defender, Carlo Parola, was nicknamed Signor Rovesciata, which means Mr. Overhead Kick.
And then never do one, and everyone will be like, "It's going to do one really soon."
Yeah.
Playing balls on the deck all day long. Everyone's like, he'll do an overhead kick soon.
Panini, the sticker people, used a picture of him doing an overhead kick as their logo before they replaced it with that jousting knight they use instead.
It's a little bit odd considering that my big book of jousting knights, the stickers for that is very sparsely filled.
The goalkeeper, Lucidio Sentimenti, is the only player at this World Cup to also be a Harry Potter spell.
Just fills you with lucid sediment.
Lucid sentiment. Makes you cry, probably.
Yeah. You know when you've had 1 pint too many and you just go, I've sobered up and I'm also sentimental. I'm just having a little cry now.
Yeah. When that happens to you next, Paul, I want you to shout, Lucidio Sentimenti.
Do a little wrist flick.
The Paraguayans, they're also out. I think their striker, Dario Jara Saguia, is still alive at age 92, I think. They were coached by Manuel Solic, nicknamed El Brujo, which of course is the wizard. So there's another Harry Potter reference. On to Group 4, not the security company.
Yeah.
Group 4 consists of Uruguay, Bolivia,
and the Ghost of Scotland.
The Ghost of Scotland, France and Turkey, who didn't show up. It was a group of one game. Uruguay against Bolivia.
Of death.
For one of them.
Yeah.
And I think we know which one, don't we?
Yes, Bolivia famously not a good side now and weren't a good side in the 30s. So we wonder whether they would have had a brief peak.
Well, it's a close game. in that both teams were quite near each other when it happened.
I don't think they even were.
No, Uruguay scraped an 8-0 win.
Oh, poor and best.
Omar Miguez scored a hat-trick, so they're through to the final group. The Bolivian squad featured a lot of players from Club Litoral.
They play a derby against Club Metaphorical.
Jamie Redknapp's favourite team, Club Literal. Uruguay are through to the final group. The final group consists of Brazil, Sweden, Spain, and Uruguay. Just want to quickly recap Uruguay's route to the last four there.
Yep.
Bolivia.
8-0.
Yeah, that's it. Sweden are in, and they've won one and drawn one, and they're in the final four. So this is the second World Cup in a row that Sweden have got to the last four by winning one game. Hey, have you ever played a board game? You have? Then you'll love my book, 101 Board Games to Play Before You Die. I look at the board games that we've loved, hated, and thrown across the room in a fit of rage. I'll tell you which classic games are not worth the time and emotional torment, and which games you should be playing instead, as well as giving you advice on how to make your dinner parties more tolerable and how to pimp your Scrabble. The perfect gift for your nerdy friend, it's available from 101boardgames.com. That's 101boardgames.com.
Are Bolivia the worst side to have reached multiple World Cups?
Probably. They're pretty bad.
It's weird because they love football there.
Yeah, I love football though, but I'm terrible at it. So into the final group, and how it works is there's like 3 rounds of games in the final group. So there's 2 games at the same time, 3 times. Uruguay are going into their first game. It's against Spain, and they at that time have a 100% record in World Cup finals games, having won 5 from 5. But first, Uruguay don't win.
We like the bell. We ding it when we can.
Uruguay take the lead, but Spain score twice in 2 minutes to make it 2-1 at half-time. With 17 minutes remaining, Uruguay equalise through their captain, Manuel Varela. At the same time, though, Brazil are playing Sweden.
Ooh, exciting times.
Why are you excited about that game?
Because Sweden have been punching above their weight.
So you're expecting a close game, are you?
Yeah.
Brazil wins 7-1.
Oh.
Adamir scores 4, taking
Very
his
nice.
tally to 7 for the tournament. It was like 5-0 with half an hour to go, and then apparently Brazil just start showing.
Ole!
Yeah.
Ole!
The other goals for Brazil are scored by Chico, which of course means boy, and Maneca, which either means dummy or butterfly.
I thought you were going to say which means somebody who's getting off with people in the 50s. He's Maneka.
Very clever.
Not really. I'm not happy with
Yeah.
it. I don't think it'll make the cut.
Maneca dies in 1961 when he ingests mercury cyanide.
Deliberately?
Yep, he won't be the last suicide in this series.
But
That's not me saying I'm going to do it, by the way. It's not
For
come
the
to that.
purposes of the podcast, we will not be dinging a bell for a big sad one that goes.
Brazil are well on the way to winning the World Cup there with a huge 7-1 win. So next round of games come round. Brazil playing Spain. Spain, of course, who've drawn with Uruguay. Brazil don't do as well as they do in the first game, though.
Oh, no.
They only win 6-1.
Oh, dear me.
Another goal for Adamir, taking his total to 8. Apparently, the best player on the park is Spain's goalkeeper, Ramallets, who
So
keeps
it
the
could
score.
have been 42-1, but without his heroic only letting 6 goals.
Brazil are back at the Maracanã. They only want to play there. They also only want English referees.
Is that because they were considered above being bribed? What was there a specific reason for that?
I think they were adjudged to be the best in the world,
Yeah.
based on God knows what. But yeah, all of Brazil's games, apart from one, are refereed by Englishmen. This game gets the record crowd for the highest crowd at a World Cup game, 152,772.
That's kind of fun that the 3 record attendances at a World Cup have been all set in the same tournament at the same place. Oh, we keep opening up extra bits. We've opened up the Skyloft. We've now got 400,000 in.
So can Uruguay keep pace against Sweden? If Uruguay-Sweden game is a draw, then Brazil have won the World Cup.
Without even having to play the last game.
And Uruguay find themselves 2-1 down with 13 minutes to go. Miguez scores 2 in the last 13 minutes to give Uruguay the win.
The last game is going to be, if it's decided on goal difference, Brazil would be 13 goals for, 2 against?
and Uruguay's would be 5 and 4. But they don't use goal difference. There'd be a replay if they finish level on points. But that can't happen anyway, because basically if Brazil draw or win, they're world champions. Uruguay need to win. But it means Sweden and Spain are both not going to win the World Cup, and they are going to play each other.
So it's 4-3rd.
Yeah, it's for third place. It's the de facto third place playoff. There is also a chance one of them could finish second if results go their way. Sweden win the game.
The third place playoff is that you did so well at it that you actually became second.
Sweden win 3-1, including a goal by Brer Mellberg. It sounds like a character from Song of the South. But he isn't. He's the great uncle of Olaf Mellberg.
Of Villa fame.
So Spain finished 4th, which is the best Spain have done so far, and the best they will do for another 60 years. Well, I want to highlight one of their players, and that is their midfielder, Lewis Maloney, who does have Irish heritage, but he is Spanish. Lewis Maloney is notable for 2 reasons. One, he would go on to manage Real Madrid and win the UEFA Cup. He also played himself in 3 films. He's in the film Once Pares de Botas.
I don't know that word, but something boats. On the boats.
No, 11 Pairs of Boots.
Oh, right, that makes more sense.
A comedy in 1954. It has an IMDb rating of 5.3. The plot is Ignacio, a professional footballer, has sentimental and labour problems. His girlfriend is about to abandon him because of the constant displays of affection that the player receives from an attractive admirer. At the same time, Ignacio discovers that 2 of his teammates have been bribed by another team. I mean, it sounds hilarious. It is on YouTube in its entirety, in Spanish, if you want to watch it. I've watched some clips of it where they play football in it, and it is some of the worst football acting I've ever seen. And I've seen Jossie's Giants. He's also in the movie Historias de la Radio.
History of the Radio.
Also a comedy, came out in 1955. Has an IMDb rating of 7.2.
Oh, that's actually decent.
He is also in the movie Saeta Rubia, which means Blonde Arrow, which is the movie that Alfredo Di Stefano made. So the plot is that Alfredo Di Stefano befriends a group of street kids and decides to coach them into a soccer team to keep them away from delinquency.
Did he not have enough on?
There are clips of it on YouTube. It looks awful. It has an IMDb rating of 4.3.
I presume that's going to be our most impressive film career until the Goal series turns up in the late 2010s.
Anyway, so yeah, Sweden 3, Spain 1. It's in Sao Paulo. 11,227 people go to watch it, which is pretty good, bearing in mind that this is happening at the same time as Brazil versus Uruguay in the Maracanã.
Yeah, that's got to be one where you just be like, oh, I've got tickets for the game at 4 p.m. You got me tickets to Brazil, Uruguay? Oh. Yeah, I imagine there was a lot of people there on portable speakers.
The attendance for this game, which is essentially the final, but it's not, but it is somewhere between 173,850 and 220,000.
I don't know how you can be out by 50,000.
There's just lots of different reports of how many people were there. That was the lowest one I could find and the highest one I could find. So it's between there.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, the 4 most attended football matches in World Cup history take place in this World Cup at the Maracanã, all involving Brazil.
And they will never be beaten because no one is ever going to build a big stadium that's 200,000 seaters seated because it's not physically possible to do.
Not with actual health and safety regs.
Yeah, that's what I mean, with health and safety regulations, and you wouldn't be able to see the game if you are 200,000 seated.
Shall we have a lesson in hubris?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, so Brazil just need a draw to be world champions.
Off the back of a 7-1 and 6-1 victory.
They're also current Copa champions. They won the Copa the year before, and in that tournament they scored 46 goals in 8 matches and beat Uruguay 5-1.
The odds are looking good.
It's looking so good, in fact, that the Brazilian FA make 22 gold medals. They record a victory song called Brasil os Vencedores, Brazil the Victors, and that was composed and practiced and ready to be played after the final. And the mayor of Rio de Janeiro delivered a speech that included the words, "You, players, who in less than a few hours will be hailed as champions by millions of compatriots, you who have no rivals in the entire hemisphere, you who will overcome any other competitor, you who I already salute as victors."
That is like trying to prove the existence of God by wiping your on a Bible. Just being like, "No, this is fine, isn't it? If you don't want to strike me down,
Hello, is that fate? I'd like to tempt you. But
could I tempt you with a little bit of a?" Mm-hmm.
on the morning of the game, O Mundo newspaper printed a photo of the Brazilian team with the caption, "These are the world champions."
That is very impressive.
The captain of Uruguay, Obdulio Varela, bought as many copies of that newspaper as he could. He put them on the bathroom floor in the dressing room area and told his teammates to spit and piss on them.
Yeah, I like this guy already.
The tension in the stadium at the start of the game is just immense. There's 200,000 people there.
No tension whatsoever because they know they're going to win. They've already made everything. They can't possibly lose from here.
The tension is so much that the Uruguayan forward, Julio Perez, during the national anthems, wets himself.
Can we have a little ding for that? That's got to be a fair.
Come on, mate. We told you to go on the newspaper.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like training a dog.
Just coming in with a rolled up O Mundo and beating him over the head. Bad.
So the game starts. In the game, Brazil have 30 shots on goal. But it is only until just after half-time when Friacha puts them ahead, scoring the only international goal he ever scores.
That's all right. You 1-0
What
up.
time to do it? Yeah.
You 1-0 up. You're cruising.
But do bear in mind, Uruguay have been behind in the last two games and have come back. They've also got a player, Ruben Moran, making his international debut in the final.
Is he another Irishman that's...
Yeah, it sounds like it. Doesn't it? Juan Alberto Schiaffino, who would later go on to play for Italy, as all South American players appear to do, he equalises.
Huzzah!
Huge shock.
Well, it's all right. Brazil just need to draw. They can just hold on.
They need a draw. It's 25 minutes to go. And then Alcides Gigia scores the winner for Uruguay on 79 minutes.
That's still 11 minutes. All you need to do is find an equaliser, lads.
No, it just absolutely knocks the Brazilians out. They just can't cope. Gigia would die exactly 65 years later to the day. He's the last survivor of the game. Let's talk about some of the reaction here. I've got this extract. There's a book called The Last Save of Barbosa by an Italian author called Darwin Pastorin. And it's all about the Brazilian goalkeeper who's blamed for the defeat, for being out of position. So this is what he says, and it's about the Brazilian commentator on the radio. "Gol de Uruguay," said Luis Mendes, narrating for Radio Globo, automatically and firmly. He repeated, asking in disbelief, "Gol de Uruguay?" He answered himself, "Gol de Uruguay." He repeated the same three words 6 more times consecutively, each with completely different intonation, with various degrees of surprise, resignation, and shock.
He's going through the 5 stages of grief. First denial, then anger.
So here's what we're going to do, Paul. We're going to try and do the 5 stages of grief just with the words "Gol de Uruguay." First of all, Paul, give me a denial.
Gol de Uruguay?
Then anger.
Gol de Uruguay?
Then bargaining.
Gol de Uruguay.
Depression.
Gol de Uruguay.
And acceptance.
Gol de Uruguay.
Very good.
I am available for voiceover work.
The book goes on to say, football's shrine was as quiet as a tomb. Gigia said many years later, only 3 people have, with just one motion, silenced the Maracanã. Frank Sinatra, Pope John Paul II, and me.
Did he walk in with his balls in a wheelbarrow to the
The goal and the gunshot that killed Kennedy both have the same drama, the same movement, rhythm, the same precision of an inexorable trajectory. They even share clouds of dust, one from a gun, one from Gigia's left foot. I think that's slightly overdoing it, to be honest.
I'd love to see the Zapruder film of this.
There's footage of this on YouTube. Gigia is given a spot on the Maracanã's Walk of Fame in 2010.
It took them 60 years to get over it.
The silence in the Maracanã at the final whistle brings a mass despondency, which becomes known as the Pesadumbre. 2 Brazilian supporters kill themselves inside the stadium.
But, lads...
I know. Do you want to say it's only a game to them? Do you?
I mean, I want to know what's going on at home.
The suicide rate in the nation as a whole goes up over the following week. The 22 gold medals are thrown in the bin. The song is never performed. And it is the last World Cup where Brazil wear white.
Oh, wow. That is incredible. Also, in the bin, would you... Sure, we've all made I'm very angry about this. But then you'd be like, I don't know, gold is quite expensive. Should we...
No, it was put in a bin, Paul, thrown away.
Thrown away.
They couldn't even look at it. The game becomes known as the Maracanazo, or the Maracana Blow, which is also slang for something you can buy in Brazil if you want cheering up.
For a bit, if you want to cheer up and then pitch TV ideas at your mates.
So at this point, Uruguay have won every World Cup that they've entered and have not been beaten. And the Uruguayan squad included Victor Andrade. His uncle Leandro had won the World Cup in 1930. The captain, Varela, is warned by all the officials, whatever you do after the game, don't go out drinking in Rio de Janeiro. Guess what he does?
There are very few safe places for you. There is not a place called Little Uruguay that you can go to and just have a quiet drink. So he goes out and gets drunk and then gets punched in the head?
No, he just goes out and has a nice time. It's
lovely.
fine. People don't really know what he looks like. There's no telly.
Yeah.
So they blame Barbosa for the defeat, the goalkeeper. And in 1993, he was banned from being a commentator on Brazil games by the president of the Brazilian Football Confederation.
His role in the 1950s, or
I think so. For like just being a massive jinx. It seems harsh, but I would gladly ban ITV from ever showing England tournament games ever again.
Exactly.
In 1963, Barbosa is gifted the old goalposts from the Maracanã when they upgrade them. What do you think he does with the old goalposts from the Maracanã?
Does he burn them? Does he burn them in a fire?
He does. He sets
I'm
fire to them. Barbosa shows up as a fictional character in a couple of things. He's a character in the critically acclaimed science fiction novel Brasil by Ian MacDonald, where a reality TV producer tries to trick him into appearing on a mock trial so that the nation can wreak its horrible vengeance upon him. There's also a Brazilian short film called Barbosa, which is about a time traveller who tries to change history, which has an IMDb rating of 7.1. Barbosa was voted goalkeeper of the tournament.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He got them to the final.
To the final, but he was out of position for the winner. Who else was in the Brazil squad? There's Jair, who said about the defeat, "I will take that loss to my grave." But not to worry, because Jair Bolsonaro is named after him.
Ooh.
Danilo, their defensive midfielder, when he signed his first ever pro contract when he was a teenager, he went out celebrating and got hit by a car, broke his leg in 39 places. After he retired, he revealed that he could never extend or bend his right leg properly. And yet here he is playing in a World Cup final.
Here's the thing. I didn't know there were 39 places in the leg.
He would later go on to coach terrible Bolivia. But, incredibly, he'd be the coach when Bolivia won their one and only Copa America in 1963.
Good for him.
They briefly are good. Baltazar, the striker, is nicknamed Cabacinha de Oro, Golden Head, another Bond villain.
I hope by the end of this podcast we can create an entire man of gold.
Yes, that should be our aim. We will attempt to do that. It also includes top scorer Ademir. He scored 8 goals, including 4. We got a hat trick for a 3. We need a word for a 4, don't we?
Yeah,
we got one. He was nicknamed Quixada, which means jaw.
All right, not because who wants to just quiche harder.
No,
more difficult quiche.
No, it's because he looks like a cross between Phil Lynott and Jimmy Hill. He's got a big old jaw. So he was the top scorer. Right, that more or less brings us to the end of the 1950 World Cup. It's time now to rate it.
Yes, please.
They loved it. They built a massive stadium. It was sort of ready in time for the final. They tried to rig it in their own favour.
The hubris gets extra points for me.
It's 2 huge shocks. England got beat by the USA, and then Uruguay beat Brazil.
Those are big shocks that we still talk about.
I'm going to say Joe Gaetjens' goal is the goal of the tournament because it is the goal that shocked the world. And it could have been a really impressive diving header.
Also, a diving header with those old wet leather balls is bravery bordering on stupidity.
Alf Ramsey said it just hit him and went in.
He would say that, though, wouldn't he?
Uruguay, they beat Bolivia 8-0. They drew with Spain. They came from behind with 5 minutes to go to beat Sweden. And then they beat Brazil.
I would say that they are very worthy, but as they are undefeated at World Cups at this point.
Brazil were demonstrably the best team at the tournament, but sometimes the best team doesn't win.
It's got a lovely poster.
It's got the big boot, hasn't it? The big boot with all the flags on the sock.
Yeah. I'm genuinely thinking about getting a print of that for my house.
Brazil literally changed the colour of their shirt because of this World Cup. And then entertainment value. I've got some stats here. There were 4 goals per game, which is the 4th highest in World Cup history. There were no 0-0s, 2 1-0s, and 2 dead rubbers out of 22 matches.
I'd say that sounds like a very entertaining World Cup. There's a lot of stories going through it.
Just a reminder on the leaderboard so far, we have in first place is Uruguay 1930 with 6.25. Yep. I can exclusively reveal that we have rated Brazil 1950 with 7.04, which means that this is currently the best World Cup of all time.
It sounded good. If you were going to time travel to one game of this, where would you go?
The final group game, Brazil-Uruguay. Because, there's already 200,000 people. They're not going to notice someone else.
Yeah, someone else there filming it on their mobile.
Yeah, as an ice cream van goes past my window. A teaser then for the next episode, something for you to think about. So when Sweden beat Italy 3-2, they ended Italy's 7-game winning run. When was that record beaten? Who by? And what is the record now? So this is consecutive wins at World Cup finals. Who beat Italy's 7-game winning run record? And when? And what is the record now? I will reveal the answer at the start of the next episode, when we will be going to Switzerland in 1954. Yes, that's right. Football's coming home to FIFA's home country, Switzerland.
Football is coming home to where all of the money is held in secret bank accounts.
There'll be a blindfolded Italian boy, one of the stupidest competition formats yet, and more goals than you can possibly imagine as we deep dive Switzerland 1954 in the next World Cup of World Cups. Thanks very much for listening and downloading. And, if you enjoy it and you've got friends who you think would like it as well, tell them about it.
Find us on Twitter and Facebook and all that.
My name is James Cook. If you want to find me on the internet, good luck to you. So thank you, Paul.
Yes, thank you very much. I've been Paul Savage.
I've been James Cook. This has been the World Cup of World Cups. Until next time, ta-ra!
Bye!
That was the World Cup of World Cups podcast with me, James Cook, and Paul Savage. You can actually find us online. I'm at James E. Cook on Twitter and Paul is at Comedy Savage. If you'd like to get in touch for any reason, you can email worldcupofworldcups@gmail.com, and if you'd like to donate to help us pay for this nonsense, you can bung us the cost of a coffee at kofi.com/worldcupofworldcups. This is one of the big hits of 1950, the Third Man theme by Anton Karas. It's good, isn't it? If you like zithers.